businessman and real estate developer by the name of J.W. Walker. It initially housed the first J.C. Penney's department store for about 6 years. After that, it became Central Arizona Light and Power Company, what is today APS, Arizona Public Service. Since that time, it has served as various municipal offices. Today, the J.W. Walker building houses various offices on the second floor and a restaurant on the lower floor. We as Phoenicians are incredibly fortunate to have this wonderful example of neoclassical architecture in our downtown.
Bienvenidos a Phoenix en un minuto, más o menos. El día de hoy estamos en el hermoso Papago Park, visitando estas hermosas colinas. A minutos del centro, este asombroso parque ofrece increíbles senderos, campos de golf, instalaciones recreativas con impresionantes colinas que suben y bajan por todo el parque, agregando una vista muy única a tu visita. El parque también cuenta con sitios históricos como la tumba del gobernador y el anfiteatro, que solía ser usado para eventos, conciertos y el servicio del amanecer de Pascua. Todos los senderos son bajos y fáciles de completar, haciéndolo un senderismo muy fluido. Adicionalmente, se puede visitar el zoológico de Phoenix y el desierto botánico. Papago Park tiene 3 estanques que ocupan 6 acres del parque, conocidas como Papago Ponds, ideales para ir de pesca. Cuenta con estacionamiento con acceso para silla de ruedas y ramadas, listas para un picnic familiar, junto a uno de los lugares más icónicos, el Hoyo en la Roca, un cerro que ofrece hermosas vistas durante todo el año. Bienvenidos a Phoenix en un minuto, más o menos. El día de hoy estamos aquí en la librería de Burton Bar en el centro de Phoenix. Esta increíble librería no es cualquier librería. En cada uno de sus 5 pisos cuenta con cuartos especiales y gracias a su arquitectura tan única le permite tener un espectáculo increíble el día del solsticio. El evento ocurre cada año en Burton Bar y con él miles de personas visitan la librería no solo para ver el evento, pero para ser parte del inicio del verano. La celebración del solsticio toma lugar en el 5º piso, donde se puede ver cómo se mueve la luz de este a oeste y en la iluminación de los pilares. Este año, la librería imprimió arte con su prensa Washington en honor a las anotaciones de Milton en la colaboración de Alfred Knight. Así que pasen por un libro y disfruten de este evento del solsticio de verano. Bienvenidos a Phoenix en un minuto, más o menos. El día de hoy estamos aquí frente a Monroe School, construida en 1914, localizada en 215 North 7th Street, diseñado por Norman F. Marsh. El edificio tiene un hermoso estilo neoclásico, con columnas dramáticas con un orden corintio. La escuela Monroe funcionaría como escuela primaria y preparatoria de 1914 a 1972, y más adelante sería el centro de reclutamiento para el Departamento de Defensa hasta 1988. Para 1998, un grupo de voluntarios con el apoyo de la legislatura de Phoenix fundaron The Phoenix Family Museum, y el 14 de junio del 2008 la cambiarían el nombre a el Museo de los Niños de Phoenix, el mismo día que abriría sus puertas al público. Sería incluido en el Registro Nacional de Lugares Históricos el 26 de agosto de 1977 y el Registro de Propiedades Históricas de Phoenix en mayo de 1987, para luego ser ajustado en marzo del 2004. Welcome to Phoenix in about a minute. We are here in front of Booker T. Washington Elementary, built in 1928. Named after leading African-American intellectual of the 19th century, Booker T. Washington. The school is located at 1201 East Jefferson Street, the first black elementary school in Phoenix, a 2-story building built for $100,000, or a little bit shy of $2 million in today's economy. With the capacity for 450 students, the school wasn't just a learning spot, it was also a social gathering spot for the African American community, who saw the school as a symbol of pride. The school would close in 1984 and would be reused as office space now for New Times and V Digital Services. The building was added to the Phoenix Historical Property Register in June 2005.
The area near 3rd Street and Buchanan is what is known as the Warehouse District. In the early 1900s, there was a sub-area of the Warehouse District that was primarily occupied by Hispanic businesses, Hispanic residences, churches, restaurants, etc. Historical buildings in Phoenix typically take the last name of the owners. Examples, the Lures Building, the Hurd Building. This building, the Gerardo Building, took the first name of Gerardo Walker. In 1936, he bought this building, created residences on the second floor, and the iconic Cenarense Cafe, which lasted into the 1960s on the ground floor. Right next door is an 1890s building that was the home of our Visu's El Fresnal grocery store until 1924. And also during that time, it was used as the Mexican Masonic Lodge. And now both buildings are part of the revitalization of the Phoenix Warehouse District.
Mi nombre es Juan Batres, soy miembro del Departamento de Desarrollo Económico y Comunitario de la ciudad de Phoenix. Pertenezco a la División de Atracción de Negocios. Mi responsabilidad en el Departamento de Desarrollo Económico primeramente es trabajar con empresas nacionales e internacionales también que están buscando establecer operaciones en la ciudad de Phoenix. Al mismo tiempo, tengo otra responsabilidad de ser el encargado comercial entre las actividades de comercio entre Phoenix y México. No hay ninguna otra ciudad que esté llevando a cabo este esfuerzo. El hecho de que trabajamos con empresas existentes aquí en Phoenix y que las ayudamos a que desarrollen negocios en México y viceversa, en este caso empresas mexicanas que están tratando de inclusive establecer operaciones aquí en Phoenix y tener esos servicios alrededor, yo creo que es lo que lo hace único. My name is Juan Batres, and I am a program manager in the Community and Economic Development Department, Business Attraction Division. I wear two hats, as I say. The first one is working every day with domestic and international companies, helping them to land their projects here. The second hat that I wear is being the economic development liaison between the city of Phoenix and Mexico. We are the only community that has a team dedicated to work on Mexico initiatives related to economic development. The aspect of working with existing companies in Phoenix that are looking to develop business in Mexico or vice versa, right? Mexican companies that are looking to bring operations and physical operations to the city of Phoenix. The aspect of creating jobs around that, I think, is different than any other economic development program that any other city conducts.
My name is Rob Duvall. I'm one of the materials supervisors at the City of Phoenix Materials Lab and Street Transportation Department. At the Materials Lab, we do construction materials testing, inspections. We ensure that all of the materials that are going into the City of Phoenix meet the requirements of the specifications for whatever application is going down. I kind of stumbled upon a career with the City of Phoenix. I was hired as a consultant, worked there for about 6 months, got hired, and I've been a material supervisor for 8 years now. That every day is something different. We encounter challenges that we face on a daily basis. Every project is different. Every project has its unique challenges. We have to really problem solve and come to a solution and make sure that the residents are getting the material that is going to have longevity. They have the ability to use these for a long time.
Hi, I'm Sierra Merowitz, Data Privacy Manager with Information Technology Services. I'm an attorney by training and I practiced law for a little bit, and in my previous roles I worked in data privacy, so when the city had an opening, I jumped right in. I work at the intersection of law and technology. It's a new and emerging area of the law. So day to day, I may be advising on the city's usage of drones or the privacy repercussions of artificial intelligence. Every day is new and exciting. I work in the business of trust. I make sure that our residents give us their data with a high level of confidence. In our city mission statement and values, we promise our residents that we will act ethically and transparently. I make sure that we are accountable to our people.
Good afternoon. Thank you for attending. If you could please find your seats, we will begin shortly.
Beginning in 1 minute.
Councilman Waring, can you hear me? Councilman Waring, can you hear me? Councilwoman Guardado, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. It's October 8th. I will call to order the meeting of the policy session of the Phoenix City Council. We'll begin with a moment of silence. We lost a member of our City of Phoenix firefighting family, and we'll do a moment of silence in remembrance. Thank you. Now we'll go to roll call.
Councilman Galindo Elvira.
Here.
Councilwoman Guardado.
Here.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Here.
Councilwoman O'Brien.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Robinson. Councilman Waring. Vice Mayor Stark.
Here.
Mayor Gallego.
Here. We'll begin with council information and follow-up requests. Who would like to go first? Does anyone have any updates? Councilwoman, well, why don't we go to Councilwoman Hodge Washington and then Councilman Galindo Elvira.
Thank you, Mayor. There have been many events since our last meeting, but I wanted to highlight just a few of our more recent events. Next slide, please. October is probably the busiest month of the year and one that our neighborhoods look forward to because of GAIN. We are looking forward to GAIN Day on a Saturday, October 19th. This past Saturday, we were at the GAIN Day kickoff event where we got to see block watch and neighborhood leaders from around the city. It was a great turnout, and I appreciate all of the resources, city departments, and community action officers from our police precincts who attended to support our residents. Next slide, please. I've been meeting with and working closely with Organized Power and Numbers to support right to counsel in eviction proceedings. This is a topic that I've had a deep personal interest in because I have seen firsthand the impact legal representation can mean to a person or a family who is facing an eviction. The right to counsel means that during an eviction hearing, both parties walk into court on an equal footing with representation. When someone is evicted, it creates a ripple effect that can quickly set in motion someone losing their shelter, which can lead them to being unsheltered. An eviction can stay on their record for up to 7 to 10 years. It can impact someone's ability to maintain stable employment and much more. The trickle-down effect on an eviction often leads to some of the challenges that our Human Services Department or Office of Homeless Solution Department have to then work on. The news conference was to raise awareness, but it's also a top priority of mine, and I hope to continue to raise awareness about this important topic. Next slide, please. I was also honored to be invited to attend the Urban Heat Leadership Academy graduation with Phoenix Revitalization Corporation and the Nature Conservancy. After 5 months of intense learning, 30 individuals graduated with the goal to be able to engage with and advocate for cooler and healthier communities through the use of heat-reducing nature-based solutions and to promote awareness of the solutions. As we continue to experience record-breaking heat due to climate change, I am grateful that these graduates are working on important changes. A city staple, Chicanos por la Casa, hosted their annual celebration honoring deserving community champions and provided an update on their agency. Next slide, please. It was also an honor to attend the Greg Stanton Central Station naming ceremony. Santon has represented the city of Phoenix as a council member, mayor, and as a congressman, and has been a champion of public transit for more than a decade. Speaking of public transit, I was happy to join the aviation department to welcome Porter Airlines to Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport with its new service to Toronto Pearson. The daily nonstop flight is a first for Porter in Arizona. Next slide. If you are looking for a greater volunteer opportunity, please join us bright and early for the Support Sky Harbor Coalition Neighborhood Cleanup. It will take place starting at 7:15 a.m. at the Wilson Primary School. Thank you to Support Sky Harbor for hosting this event. The neighbors, as well as my team, is looking forward to a great service project in District 8. Next slide. As always, if you need help with any city services or notice an issue in our neighborhood, don't hesitate to reach out to my office. That is all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Councilman Galindo Avira.
Thank you, Mayor. I have technology, right? I'll do my narrator voice now. This summer, I teamed up with local neighborhood groups and the Boys and Girls Club to bring Christmas in July to the kids of District 7. Thanks to Bahama Bucks and Levine, the kids had an exciting time throwing real snowballs, a rare treat during the summer in Arizona. Every child who attended received a special wrapped gift. Children under 8 got life vests, while those 8 and older received Bluetooth speakers. Next slide. This summer was filled with fun and exciting moments. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who helped make my first summer as a council member unforgettable. I'm looking forward to creating even more great memories together in the future. Next slide. Huge thanks to Renee Dominguez and the Homedale Neighbors Association for pulling off an amazing event at Smith Park with less than 2 weeks' notice. When additional Park Foundation funds became available at the last minute, Parks asked them to step in, and they delivered for the community. At the end of the month, I'm excited to team up with La Campesina Radio to host a Halloween Boo Bash. The event will feature live music, luchador wrestling, fun prizes, and of course, plenty of candy. Join us on October 25th at Desert West Park from 6 to 9 p.m. I hope to see you all there. I want to extend my best wishes to Arizona Task Force as they head to Florida to assist with the approaching Hurricane Milton. Thank you for your service, and I hope you all return home safely. As always, if you live in District 7 and want to contact me, it's easy. You can reach out through any of the methods on the screen. I'm here to serve you, and I greatly value your feedback. Thank you, Mayor, for the time.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pastor.
Thank you. This weekend, we kicked off GAIN, Getting Arizona Involved in Neighborhoods and Promoting Safety Awareness and Community Activation. We are excited to attend GAIN events this month throughout District 4, from block parties to street cleanups. Next slide. 72 trees have been planted in the Simpson neighborhood. This Saturday, Heat Response and Mitigation handed out the necessary supplies to ensure these trees will be enjoyed by residents for years to come. This is the first of many tree plantings that are happening this month and next all over District 4. So many schools and neighborhood associations applied for funds from the Community Canopy Grant Program. I'm very excited to see more trees in these areas. 185 in Westwood Village, 22 at Loma Linda School, 80 plus at the Maryview Park neighborhood, 108 in FQ Story, 28 at William T. Mackin School, and 28 at the Creighton Academy. Thank you to the Office of Heat Response and Mitigation for organizing these tree plantings and bringing them to fruition. We had a great coffee chat last Wednesday at Crate Tea Room on McDowell and the Miracle Mile. Next month, we will meet at Tacos y Mariscos, Sinaloa, to discuss the park's master plan and further connect our west side to their community action officers. Here's a fun event for the whole family. Join us Saturday, October 26th for the second International District Night Market. There will be a costume contest, food trucks, live music, trunk or treating, and more. Kids under 12 get in for free if they are wearing their costumes. We are now in the fourth week of the Arizona State Fair. Year after year, I hear neighbors report numerous parking violations and other incidents during the State Fair season. The Neighborhood Services Department and police have been working diligently to ensure residents in the neighborhoods around the fairgrounds can report any violations for action. Call 602-757-7191 anytime or email statefairtraffic@phoenix.gov to report any violations. And as always, feel free to contact my office. I'm here to serve.
Thank you. Any additional updates? All right, we will go then to item 1, rezoning development process, state law changes, and text amendment updates. The City of Phoenix has long had a very thoughtful process that incorporates community input along the way. This process has helped us become the most dynamic, populous city in the Valley. For many years, we've even led the country in terms of new residents. We've been intentional about balancing significant growth and the housing needs that come with it, while maintaining what makes our neighborhoods so special. For so many, when they talk about how they fell in love with Phoenix, it was our unique and wonderful neighborhoods. We've received millions of dollars in grants to conduct collaborative planning with our transit-oriented communities and have seen outstanding results. Between zoning reforms, the Housing Phoenix Plan, TOD/TOC plans, Transportation 2050, we've encouraged density and height where appropriate, allowed increased multifamily development, streamlined permitting, and cut parking minimums. Phoenix has entitled over 60,000 units in the past 5 years. There's no question our rezoning efforts, zoning reforms, and process improvements have benefited both single-family and apartment residential growth. Our work has been highlighted in national publications. For example, the New York Times recently wrote about growth in apartments and condos, including highlighting a Rent Cafe study that found that in August of this year, the City of Phoenix is leading the region, and we are leading the country. It said most of this construction that is leading the country for our metro is concentrated in Phoenix proper, noting that our interest and shift towards sustainability could be one of the reasons why the city has been attracting more and more environmentally conscious businesses and residents in recent years, driving the demand for apartments in Phoenix. We come together at a time when the legislature has been very focused on city policy. It's sometimes really with frustrating results. Their attempt at housing policy has overridden local control and steamrolled the countless hours our residents have contributed to thoughtful policy creation through public hearings and village planning committees. And often then, even then, the policies do not actually contribute to increasing the number of housing units in our community. For example, under the leadership of Vice Mayor Stark and with significant input from our council and our neighborhoods, we passed an accelerated dwelling unit policy that enabled ADUs by right anywhere in the city, the backyard casitas. We ensured that they would truly support increased inventory by prohibiting the use of ADUs as short-term rentals. The state legislature quickly preempted us with a policy that allowed ADUs by right with no assurance that they would be used for anything other than Airbnbs. So the city's policy focused on housing, the state allowed party houses. In fact, the state legislature's new rules regarding ADUs and short-term rentals are so favorable, it's almost as if Airbnb's lobbyists wrote the bill themselves. Ironically, some of the wealthier, more exclusive cities are excluded from this state policy. Phoenix is lucky to have solutions-oriented staff, and we're here today to better understand these laws and their impact on Phoenix neighborhoods. With that, I'll introduce Deputy City Manager Alan Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Today, we are here to discuss the recent state law changes, as the mayor stated, and how the city is drafting text amendment to comply with those. We'll go do a statute overview and then talk about that implementation. We also are going to talk about the Downtown Code text amendment, which is one that has gone the traditional process of staff working with downtown stakeholders and the development community as well to come to a resolution and bring this text amendment forward with broad support. With that, I'll turn it over to Josh Bednarik, who's going to do the first part of the presentation, then Tricia Gomes is going to go from there, and they'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Mayor, members of the council, before we talk about how we're responding to the recently adopted bills by the Arizona State Legislature, I believe it's worth just spending a few minutes highlighting the great work we are doing in Phoenix, responding to the state's development and housing challenges on our own, echoing many of the mayor's opening comments. Phoenix has and continues to be a leader for not only the state, but the nation in many areas of planning and zoning. We were the first city in Arizona to adopt a form-based code, which focuses more on the design of the building than on the uses within them, in the Downtown Code in 2010. The Downtown Code adoption set the stage for a tremendous amount of investment that has made the heart of our city more vibrant, safe, and walkable. Phoenix has been a model for transit-oriented community planning and been recognized by the Arizona chapter of the American Planning Association, Arizona Forward, and others for our work planning with communities within our light rail corridors. At no time in Phoenix's history have more residents lived within a 10-minute walk of public transit than today. Thanks to your leadership and the investment of our development partners, we are transforming our shopping malls into vibrant urban cores with thousands of new residents. We have long been a leader in the field of adaptive reuse from both a zoning and program standpoint, and just last year you supported several updates to the zoning ordinance that approved the addition of accessory dwelling units and modernized our parking standards for multifamily development. An accomplishment that I know the mayor just celebrated and that you've heard me tout before, but I think is worth repeating, is the amount of units you as a council have approved the last 5 years via rezoning cases. More than 60,000 ready for plan review dwelling units. This number is a testament to the strength of our planning process, the dedication of the volunteers on our village planning committees and planning commission, the commitment to continue to invest in Phoenix from our development partners, and the leadership of this council. I'll now turn to our Deputy Director, Tricia Gomes, to provide an overview of the recently passed legislation. Tricia.
Thank you, Josh. Mayor, members of the council. There were 4 zoning bills that became law during the last legislative session: accessory dwelling units, rezoning hearing process, adaptive reuse of multifamily, and missing middle housing. The first 3 are required to be implemented by January 1, 2025. Missing middle housing is required to be implemented by January 1, 2026. We'll talk about accessory dwelling units and the rezoning process. So House Bill 2720 requires that 2 ADUs be allowed by right and a third if on an acre lot or greater and qualifies as affordable. Cities may not require more restrictive height or setback requirements than the main house. No more than a 5-foot setback from the rear or side property line is permitted. There is limited design review. However, you cannot require exact exterior design match, roof pitch, or finishing materials of the single-family dwelling. Potential impacts of House Bill 2720. With 2 ADUs on the lot, short-term rentals can change the neighborhood dynamics, result in increased parking on the streets, and alter the neighborhood design and character. In addition, multiple structure in a backyard will reshape how the lot is utilized, and the lot coverage maximums are being increased in certain districts to provide for. Senate Bill 1162 requires a rezoning application to be reviewed for completeness within 30 days. The review of any resubmittals must be done within 15 days, and that process is repeated until the application is complete. Once the application is complete, the application must be denied or approved within 180 days. The city may impose one 30-day extension for extenuating circumstances, and the applicant may request multiple extensions in maximum of 30-day increments. These changes in processing timeframes will require rigid compliance with the application requirements for completeness checks and delay the start of the rezoning process. This constrains public input and ability to work towards a compromise. And there could be more continuance requests from applicants. The proposed text amendment to address ADUs mirrors the state law requirements for ADUs. In addition, the text amendment for the rezoning hearing process also mirrors the state law requirements. Staff is currently evaluating the administrative process changes to maintain compliance and standards for rezoning application acceptance. An informational presentation will be provided to the Planning Commission on October 10th, and action by the Planning Commission is scheduled on November 7th. The village planning committees were sent information on both text amendments, and staff will provide an overview at future meetings if requested. House Bill 2297 addresses adaptive reuse and multifamily. This bill requires adaptive reuse of existing commercial buildings by non-residential uses. Also, the conversion of commercial sites to multifamily uses when a minimum of 10% of the dwellings qualify as affordable or workforce housing. The city must allow highest density within 1 mile of the site, and the building height up to 5 stories with some caveats such as setbacks from single-family zoning districts. Potential impacts of House Bill 2297 is small-scale commercial buildings at greater risk for demolition and redevelopment. It also eliminates public input into projects that will have an impact on the community. Through staff analysis, we find that Phoenix is already a leader in adaptive reuse. The city's adaptive reuse program began as a pilot and has been in place since 2008. Also, commercial zoning already permits multifamily zoning, but not at the scale required to allow for the state law compliance. For the multifamily portion, staff analyzed 2 areas where there is strong policy support for multifamily development, 1 in our village cores and 2 in our transit-oriented communities. Staff found that not all village cores are ideal locations. Village cores are employment centers and need to balance jobs and housing in each village. Some village cores are still emerging and need to prioritize buildings and land area for destinations, retail, and restaurants. In the transit-oriented community areas, there are adopted TOC policy plans identified areas for more housing and dozens of locations identified throughout the corridors for more height and density. Many properties are already zoned to meet or exceed the law. For example, high-rise zoning along Central Avenue. Staff recommends an overlay that applies only in the adopted transit-oriented community districts for properties with commercial and multifamily zoning. However, this does not include our downtown. As Josh mentioned, it's our adopted form-based code, which already includes extensive height and density in this area. Also, the Gateway and 50th Street station areas, these are excluded due to the proximity to the Sky Harbor Airport and as an exclusion of part of the law. The main provisions of the proposed overlay allows an additional height at a maximum 5 stories, 56 feet by right, and unlimited density when developing per the Walkable Urban Code development standards. Also, within 100 feet of single-family zoning district, the height is limited to 2 stories and 30 feet. A minimum of 10% of all dwelling units must be affordable or workforce housing. The overlay does not supersede any other overlapping special planning district, specific plan, neighborhood plan, or similar regulatory plan. It does not change the base zoning classifications, nor does it change the permitted or prohibited uses. And it does not include HP or HPL designated properties. 8 village planning committees within the proposed boundaries are taking action on the overlay in October. Camelback East Village Planning Committee recommended approval, and the Encanto Village Planning Committee has recommended denial. The remaining villages will hear for the rest of the month. An informational presentation will be provided to the Planning Commission this Thursday on October 10th, and action is scheduled for November 7th. House Bill 2721 is regarding missing middle housing, also known as duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes. Missing middle housing is required to be implemented by January 1, 2026. The statute requires up to 4 units on all residentially zoned properties within 1 mile of the central business district or designated downtown area. Staff is conducting an analysis and developing an approach. Briefings to occur later this year. Potential impacts of House Bill 2721 are that duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes will be developed in neighborhoods with only single-family homes, potentially altering the neighborhood's character. In addition, existing single-family homes may be more susceptible to demolition for the purposes of redevelopment for a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. And this will require an overhaul of the current organizational structure for residential zoning standards within our Phoenix zoning ordinance. For the downtown code update, it's TA 5-22. This text amendment, or the downtown code, was originally adopted in 2010 and was the first form-based code, which focuses on design. The downtown code implements the downtown strategic plan and the downtown urban form project, and has helped shape downtown into what it is today and what it is becoming. Changes to the downtown code were done in partnership with Phoenix Community Alliance and Downtown Phoenix, Inc., which includes streamlining the development process within the downtown code, such as clarifying the design review and appeal processes, enhances frontage elements for new uses and autonomous vehicles, strengthens requirements for active and shaded street frontages, and promotes utilization of art in private development. The Central City and Encanto Village Planning Committees recommended approval of this update. Action by the Planning Commission is scheduled for this Thursday, October 10th. I will turn it back to Mr. Bednar to discuss next steps.
Thank you, Tricia. Mayor and members of the council, we'll close with a recap of where we go from here. The ADU rezoning hearing process, adaptive reuse, and multifamily by right text amendments, along with the downtown code text amendment, will be back before you for action on November 13th. Later this year, as Trish noted, we will start briefings with you on the missing middle housing text amendment. In 2025, we will move forward with an informational presentations and public hearings for the missing middle text amendment and continue our work on the other text amendment work program priorities previously discussed with you. Mayor, members of the council, this concludes our presentation. We are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council member comments. Council Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we're in a crisis. I know we need affordable housing. I think the city of Phoenix has done a great job. I am concerned some of our neighboring cities maybe have not done as such a good job. However, having said that, I think we really tried to be ahead of the curve, and we adopted a lot of text amendments, including the accessory dwelling unit. One of the things that we fought for, because many of our residents were concerned with short-term rental, and we said we don't want short-term rental. So when you make your property short-term rental, you're making it available to people that might not necessarily live in the city of Phoenix. They might actually be from other states. Yes, you can make money as a short-term rental, but you can also use your property as a long-term rental and make that money, and you might actually help the housing crisis that we're in. You're alleviating some of the stress for affordable housing units on the market, so you can consider yourself part of the solution. I appreciate short-term rentals. I've stayed in short-term rentals. I see that they are part of our sharing economy, and I get that. but I do think the cities need some kind of regulation to make sure they don't become so overpowering they take away affordable housing. And I use the example of Sedona. They're talking about passing an ordinance where people who work in the hospitality industry will be camping out in their cars. Now, that's an extreme crisis, and I don't think we have that in Phoenix, but I do think we need some form of regulation for short-term rentals. I have no problem with accessory dwelling units. As a matter of fact, one of my constituents actually went through a process, and he did some standard plans, and he's been working with the planning department, and they've been doing wonderful work. He finds that most of the people are doing ADUs, and they're actually using it for someone in their family, someone who's elderly they want to take care of, or a child that just at this point can't afford a house. So I do see they serve a purpose. I also applaud our staff stepping up and talking about the issues with parking. And I know you continue to look at ways to make it easier to build affordable housing. We took it on ourselves to look at our process improvements in the planning department, water services, and street transportation. And I know that the directors of those three departments have made a commitment. They will continue to review over and over again to make sure that we're getting permits out the door. Because as we hear from the development community, and I worked in the development community for many years, time is money. And we don't want to penalize you with time. We want you to get permitted. We want you to build houses, and especially affordable housing. I have two children, both millennials. My daughter is lucked out. She actually owns a house. My son doesn't. I think he would love to have something, but he just can't afford it. And so I am really committed to affordable housing, but I think from my perspective, we have a better insight as to what we need to do as a city to make sure we're addressing those issues. And so I understand we have to go along with these requirements because the state has placed them on us. But I hope that we continue to address other issues that really are hurting our affordable housing, which includes short-term rental, which includes processing times, and I know we're committed to that. Mayor, I think we've done a great job in the city of Phoenix. Again, I hope that other cities will follow our lead and do things to make sure they're building affordable housing. It's great to have it along the light rail, but a lot of jobs aren't along the light rail, and you need affordable housing where jobs are. So with that, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo many of the sentiments. I understand the motivation for our legislature to take this path. However, I think it goes against one of our greatest strengths as a city, as the amount of public input that we do receive on our zoning cases. And this has the effect of stifling many of that needed conversation. I just wanted to state that on the record so they understand. Many times I think our community, our residents are not understanding some of these changes that are occurring and the motivation behind this. So I think this policy session is very helpful to get that information out to them. This is not necessarily the city of Phoenix making this policy determination. We are implementing the policy as outlined by our state legislature. I do have a couple questions just along that frame of reference for clarification purposes for our residents. One of the questions that has been asked or has been raised is, what is the net effect of taking it to the village for information and vote if it is already a dictate from a mandate from our state legislature?
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, we certainly, to the degree that we can, want to continue to have an open dialogue with our village planning committee members. To that end, while there wasn't an opportunity for them to really provide any input, as Ms. Gomes highlighted in the slides, the ADU and the rezoning hearing process text amendments simply mirror those the state statute requirements. We wanted to make sure that they're informed about those changes and want to make sure that we're not hiding that. And so we certainly, given the time constraints and their inability to really affect any change, didn't see it as a productive measure to take it to them, but certainly want to keep them informed, and that was our logic.
Okay. For example, I think when you mentioned on, maybe I wrote the wrong slide number down. On slide 22, you mentioned that with respect to the adaptive reuse and multifamily overlay district, that had already been taken to at least two villages already, and one had voted for denial. I'm curious as what is the net effect if we have more village planning committees that say they don't want this? What is our next step?
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, it's a great question. And as Trish highlighted in the slide, the charge for that particular statute, separate and apart from the rezoning and the ADUs, was to update our ordinance to allow for density, unlimited density in Phoenix's case, because we have districts that don't allow for density, and up to 56 feet in height. We, as we approached understanding how to try to come to an understanding about the best way to comply with that, we looked at two areas. Well, where do we have policy support? Again, building on that, what have our village planning committees, what is you as our council, what has our community said with respect to where apartments, multifamily should go? And those two areas rose to the top, our village cores and our light rail corridors. We have strong policy basis in both. We zeroed in on the light rail corridors for the reasons outlined by Ms. Gomes. I still continue to contend that it is the best option for us as Phoenix, that it aligns with many of our policy provisions. I certainly understand the Village Planning Committee's concerns. Ultimately, will be the totality of their recommendations will be something that Planning Commission and then ultimately you as council will have to consider in light of the fact that we have a deadline to have this done by January 1st, 2025.
And you transitioned really well to my next question. Given the fact that we do have the deadline of January of 2025 to have this implemented, is there a plan B if this does not move forward?
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, right now, what we have put forward, we think is our best effort. If we get direction from you as a council on November 13th, that is not acceptable. We have very limited time to pivot. Certainly, I think in the coming days and weeks ahead of the November 13th, we'd love the opportunity to sit down with all of you individually, talk through that overlay some more, talk through the feedback that we are getting from our village planning committees, and understand what, if any, other options we might have.
And I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just acknowledging
No, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted, there was another question that I had regarding slide number 10, when it talks about the potential impact of HB 2720. It talks about increased lodge coverage in some districts. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that, please? Thank you. Pointed to you, Trish.
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, members of the council. Yes, in some of our larger districts, so RE24, R114, those districts, we're proposing increases in order to allow for those ADUs. Otherwise, these provisions having to allow 2 and up to 3, you would not be able to achieve that with the existing lot coverage provisions.
Thank you. And then I just had one more question for you, and it was on... Oh, I just wanted a little clarification on slide 15. The third bullet says city must allow highest density within 1 mile of site. And are we specific, if you can identify which site you're referring to in that context?
Certainly, Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, members of the council. So as Josh mentioned, we do have a zoning category, walkable urban code, which allows unlimited density. So if you were to evaluate any site, and that being within a 1 mile of a walkable urban code, we would have to allow unlimited density.
Okay, so you were talking about the WU code when you said this, when you said site in this context. It's not necessarily, go ahead.
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, there are a couple of ways you could have implemented this bill. One of them was to apply it citywide, and then you're drawing randomly wherever someone says they want to do that. Generally speaking, with the walkable urban code, PUDs that we've approved, we've moved away from regulating density. And so as we took a quick look at the analysis, there's a good chance, no matter where you end up in Phoenix, you're probably touching within a 1 mile radius a project that doesn't have a density limit. And so from that standpoint, that's another reason it drifted us towards the TOC areas.
I think I understand. I just want to make sure I'm clarifying. When you say site here, you're talking about within the urban walkable code, sorry. Not necessarily from, because there's the use of the word site is in the bullet before. I just want to make sure we're not talking about from those commercial sites.
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge, no, I appreciate that. The bullet here is attempting to summarize what's in state statute. And the state statute says, if anybody wants to use this provision, you have to give them the highest density within a mile of the site that they're choosing. As opposed to letting them just pick any site across the city, we have said these are the areas in which you can have that because we already know what the density limit would be. It would be 0.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's all I wanted to make sure make sure that was clear. Again, thank you for all of the efforts that you guys have done on this. I know we spent quite a bit of time actually coming up with the language that we as city representatives thought was best for our city, and it's unfortunate now we are having to readjust this in light of, I think, based on our legislature who did not have the benefit of all of the input that we've had from our residents. So thank you again for your efforts.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Galindo Elvira, followed by Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, staff, thank you for that great presentation. Very much appreciated. Phoenix has an extensive history of public involvement, the contribution of their voice in the development process. And this process has enabled neighborhoods to craft a character that's unique for them. For example, in District 7, we have Roosevelt Row, Grand Avenue, South Central, Levine, Estrella, and just to name a few. In slides 9 and 10, you covered some of the impacts of this legislation. With the legislative changes to ADUs, the public process is being stripped away from our communities. They're being silenced. What other implications does this legislation have on the demands to the city's infrastructure?
Mayor, Councilman Galindo Elvira, as I think Trish noted it in the slides, there's a myriad of potential impacts. If you have a particular neighborhood that's going to see an onslaught of investment in ADUs, certainly the demand on the infrastructure with the streets, with traffic, with parking, water and sewer infrastructure, if you're certainly getting to significant levels there. But it's a lot of unknowns, and that speaks to why we always lead collaboratively in planning with our community, but also with our partner departments, and why we spent so much time and effort thinking and being very strategic about where we want density, so that we have the services and the infrastructure to support that. When we have these kinds of changes coming to us without that, there are certainly some of those risks that take place. In order to respond and have the regulatory framework that puts us in compliance with state statute, there certainly could be areas of the city where the services and the infrastructure and the character could be compromised because we weren't able to collaborate with the community on that.
Thank you for your response.
Councilwoman O'Brien, followed by Councilwoman Pastor.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Can you tell me, how will the state law HB 2720 impact regulations that HOA communities might have on an ADU or building ADUs?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, I don't believe that any impact, any of the state law changes, will have impact on an HOA's ability to regulate ADUs within their area of control. I'll defer to Ms. Gomes if she has a different understanding of the law.
No, Mayor, members of the council, I believe that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then SB 1162, how might that impact our timelines? Potentially, you have a bullet point that says rigid compliance with application requirements for completeness checks because of time clock.
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, members of the council, certainly, as I said, when an application initially comes in, we have 30 days to determine whether it's complete, meaning the applicant has submitted all their required documents. if we don't get all those documents, then we go through a cycle of the 15 days to determine if they've gotten their information into us. We can no longer, we currently work with applicants if there are some items within their application that we still need as part of the application, but they're not significant enough for us to hold the application and move it forward. We will do that in order to move that application forward. With this time frame in place, we will have to wait till every piece of the submittal is in before we can start the process, which will delay ultimately the application moving forward.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to paraphrase back to make sure I understand this. So what Senate Bill 1162 does is takes away the city's flexibility to work with developers, sometimes, concurrently while things are going on, and will make us be incredibly rigid, and to use your word, and how we do that, because now we have this clock, this time clock, that would impose penalties on us if we're not meeting their requirements.
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, members of the council, yes, we agree with that.
Can you think of an example where you worked with a developer and tell me how it positively impacted their timeline to do the method the way we are doing it currently?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, there are dozens of examples every year. I think you have seen, many of you have seen cases that will come through the process. One of the requirements of a rezoning case at times will be a site plan and elevations. Well, as you know, you've heard from your development partners, in some cases, they're not in a space to provide that or have that fully fleshed out or want to work that out or let that be something iterative as they work with the community. Well, the application requires that, and we've sort of taken a flexible approach. We're like, all right, we'll let you go through. We'll either stipulate you to come back through that process. This makes that difficult for us because that's now an unknown, and we have this time frame. They don't have the time that they can work with the community to get that. So that's one example, and I'd say it's probably in the majority of cases that we work with.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I want to thank staff and council members because I think we've been working diligently to reduce red tape or find ways to work flexibly through our system to shorten that time. I know that we depended on you all heavily to do some things concurrently with some developers in my district, and they were very much appreciative because, as we all know in this business, time is money, and the sooner we get these units built, the better it is for our community. So, the quicker we get go from shovels in the ground to keys in the door, that's important. I also, was working and will continue to work with the legislature to have a law which would help us to get more starter homes and middle homes as well, because we have some issues there that are preventing us from do that. As the chair of the Housing Committee, I'm committed to working with all partners to get things done. It's really frustrating to have the state legislature preempt us. We want more affordable, attainable housing here. We have been working with you guys, Pulte, right, for the last, it seems like a longer time than it probably has been, but I'm going to say like 12 to 18 months on that land up in my district where they would like to have a lot of housing, and trying to make sure we get that ready and have it go in the most expeditious manner. So I'm appreciative for that work, and we will continue doing that work. I really just can't say enough how aggravating it is to have the state legislature tell us how to do business. Quite frankly, it really is no different than the DOJ knocking on our door and telling us how to do the police department. We can handle this on our own. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank our village planning committees and our planning commission. And I want to thank you for taking this information back to them. Even though they don't have a vote on some of this, it is important. As the vice mayor talked about, we heard from a lot of community members about ADUs and short-term rentals, and we don't have all the ability to put in rules and regulations related to that. And again, it's another way that our citizens who vote for the folks at the state legislature are being shut out of the process and not listened to. Thankful for our volunteers, most definitely. And I'm also concerned not just about the infrastructure of water and sewage and streets, but these changes also will have an impact on our public safety and our local school districts without them having any kind of input to it or understanding. So this is frustrating. I know you're doing your job and we're just complying with state law, but it's so aggravating that they are telling us what to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I think making sure the village planning commissioners know what's happening might lead to better legislation, perhaps. I also really want to underline one point that Josh just made. The majority of the cases we have coming in are not complete, and yet we work with them because we are supportive and want to be good partners. Councilwoman Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank staff for this process, and more importantly, ADUs. We have probably been working on this for the last 2.5 years, maybe 3, maybe 2.5. Me in particular was working with the historic district and making sure that we protect the historic district and the dynamics that happen with the ADUs, and making sure we keep the character of the area. I would like to see I want another opinion on HB 2720. And I want an outside opinion, in particular regarding the text amendment regarding the owner residing on the property. The way it reads is to require, let's see, HB 2720 includes a new item specifically regarding how municipality may require that an owner reside on the property if more than one ADU on the property is licensed for use as STR. I do understand that when we pass the ADU, at that moment, then everybody in Phoenix could be qualified for an ADU. And so that then put into place some of the language that is in HB 2720 and in the section of 12-1134. I really want to look at that, and I want clarity, and I want an outside opinion that understands these pieces. I'm not saying that we're wrong, but I think we do need a second opinion. The other item is that I understand how this process is moving to January. I also understand that we're voting this in November, and we have 2 meetings in December, in particular formal meetings, that we can move the day that we are voting in November to December. And the reason why I'm saying this is because of involvement of the community and the villages. I understand that the villages are they do want to hear this. It could be for information only. However, I believe there's a bigger community other than the villages. So my suggestion is that we do one community meeting where all us districts invite everybody that is interested in all these different changes and be able to at least do one community meeting either before the November date that you want us to vote on or that we're supposed to vote on, or find a formal piece in December where we can vote on it and give us more time for a community meeting. But I do think that a community meeting needs to be done. These are changes people aren't understanding. The dialogue can happen as to why why we're changing it. It's just important. And Those are all the calls that I received. The other piece is in the ADUs and 2 or more. How will that happen regarding fire? Like, I can see myself putting an ADU in my backyard, but it's close to my house. I also have a detached garage that I could make into an ADU. But what comes into play when there is a fire, there's some issues? How does all the safety come into play?
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, all structures in Phoenix will have to be built in compliance with the adopted building code. One of the provisions of the adopted building code, depending on the size of the structure, the placement of the structure on that property, the proximity of that structure to any other existing structures, there'll be different things, firewalls, distancing requirements that they'll have to demonstrate compliance with as part of the plan review process.
Well, the other thing is it just pushes up the cost. And the reason why I'm bringing this forward is because some of the argument at the legislature was, we want ADUs because we're gonna be able to put more housing in the market and it's gonna make it more affordable. In our language, when we did ADUs, we were very clear about short-term rentals. We were very clear on our language. Then it got stripped as we were moving through the process. And then it was not included in the language. Also that got stripped was the historic piece, the historic language, that got stripped. And the argument was we need more housing into the network. Well, ADUs cost a lot to build. So I want them to prove me wrong, but I don't believe all of a sudden we're gonna have all these ADU permits to come in and go because of cost. And all of this drives cost. The other piece about it is we have a good network out in our community called the Arizona Neighborhood Alliance. And I have a copy right here, which is pretty small for you. But on this copy, it shows the blue is the Wall Street-owned homes within our area, and the orange are the short-term rentals. And on this map, there's only 6K in blue and only 35 in red. In the blue, there's 71K that actually is on a map. And there's 35,000 that are on a short-term rental. If we want to change and we want housing, affordable housing, then we need to look at this. They're eating up our affordable housing and they're driving up the cost when they're being sold. The other piece is we're spending money, lots and lots of money, on police going to these STRs for a matter of many of things, and the cost is really 28 times the rate of actual residents. So we need to figure out how we're going to recoup that cost. The annual loss to Arizona, this is just Arizona, so who knows what Phoenix is, we can break it down, is 80 million. I'm also going to show you another piece, is that there are 65,000 short-term rentals in our space of Phoenix. Only 7,200 are on our registered with Phoenix. So somehow we need to do a better job of getting these STRs on our logs or on our books so we know where they are and we're able to then to start calculating the cost. Now this has nothing to do with what we're talking, it kind of does, but we're back to ADUs. So to my friends at the legislature that somehow, which for some way, two different opposite entities came together and created this language and created this narrative that it was going to be able to bring housing into the market and it was going to be affordable or rent was going to be less. I'm hoping in a year they prove that to me, but I don't believe that's what's going to happen. As for the other piece, we have many friends at the legislature that were lobbying for some of the pieces, and they're within their own industry. And so now that the time that it has been accelerated, I believe it's 180 days, am I correct? To be able to move all the paperwork and everything. So 180 days, it seems like a lot, but when you're developing, it's not a lot. And if I back that up, I'm hoping that you show up at the city with all your paperwork and plans in order, because you may not meet the 180. We'll meet it, but they may not, because time is money. And what's going to happen, it's going to shorten, and they're not going to be able to get things through. So for me, this is a process that we get through, we see how it works, and I'm assuming the same people that wrote the legislation will go back and change it to where it works. I understand that other cities may not operate the same way we do. I understand that there's frustration with other cities, but to those that are crafting this policy and wanting to make this happen in other cities, will then include the other cities and exclude Phoenix, because we are doing our job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Pastor. That is a great point about which cities were included and which were not. Our government affairs team did great work, and even Governor Hobbs really tried to fight to make sure that ADUs went to housing and not to vacation rentals. So we really appreciate the League of Cities, everyone who worked. But we got some pushback even from Phoenix's own legislators. For example, State Senator Ana Hernandez said short-term rentals won't destroy neighborhoods as opponents contend. What we've seen is what has destroyed our neighborhoods is that cities continue to uphold exclusionary zoning that have not let us for years on board this type of diverse housing. And then they exempt out Fountain Hills, Paradise Valley, Prescott Valley. Just very disappointing. Phoenix is a city that has embraced diversity, but so many cities that do not have the incredible diversity we do were somehow exempted. I wonder why. Any additional comments before we go to public comment?
Quick,
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Again, I understand the need for affordable housing, and I think you've heard it today up here on the dais. We are committed to making sure we have affordable housing in the city of Phoenix. I just hope that we can convince some of our fellow cities and towns to do the same. There's a lot of great cities and towns out there. I know some are addressing it, but we need to do this collectively. We need to make it work for the entire state of Arizona. And hopefully with that, then the legislature will understand that we are trying to do our job. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We will begin with Opal Wagner, followed by Eric Gilmore.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Opal Wagner, I live in District 4, and I currently am the chairperson of the Encano Village Planning Committee. I am not here today to speak on behalf of the committee, but I do want to share some of what occurred at our meeting last night, where ultimately our committee decided to vote down the adaptive reuse multi-family housing TA and some of the reasons why. And it's my opinion, but it's also what happened at the meeting. We had a very robust hour and a half plus discussion on this before voting to reject this. There is a huge diversity of thought in our group at Encano Village, but most of the people who voted against did so because They thought this is not expansive enough and that it is not likely to produce much affordable housing, and here's why. To place this along the TOD community corridors might be the path of least resistance as far as not having to adapt too much of the city code or zoning ordinance, but this is some of the most expensive property in our city. The light rail has been wildly successful, as we know. People want to live near it, and the prices have gone up and up and up. So to think that developers are going to swarm in and buy up these very expensive properties to build affordable housing, I think is very unlikely to happen. Phoenix is a 520 square miles. This is limited to 30 square miles, which is 6% of the land area in our city. There are many, many areas of town that people would like to live in, and I believe people of all income levels should have more choice to live wherever works for them in Phoenix. I think there's time before January to rewrite this to make it even more inclusive than it is, and I have complete confidence in the planning staff that if you direct them to change course on this, they can do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Gilmore is next, followed by Eric Nielsen.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am on the Willow Board for the Historic District in Central Phoenix, and it feels like we are caught in the crosshairs of these three text amendments. The Willow Conservation Plan was adopted by the City Council in 1986, recognizing that Willow needed protection in order to avoid the deterioration that often befalls urban neighborhood adjacent to high-intensity, high-rise development. We've asked at 3 different public meetings how these text amendments will affect the Willow Conservation Plan. We have not heard any answers. Our neighbors deserve to know what impacts these text amendments will have on our neighborhood. Some of these questions below have already been discussed today, but I wanted to reiterate for my neighbors' sake and to put on the record, as they would be good to have a community meeting on as proposed by Councilwoman Pastor today. The first question is why we're in Canto Village and Central City Village specifically targeted to bear the burden of the massive increase in density permitted by these text amendments while allowing 95% of the rest of the city of Phoenix to remain at traditional single-family density levels. How much new housing and population increase could this bring to our area? How many commercial buildings are eligible to be converted to residential, and will there be hearings? Are we still considered single-family zoning? If so, how is it possible to have a different definition of single-family zoning in our area versus the rest of Phoenix? We understand the need for more affordable housing, the challenging situation that we are in with the recent legislation from the state. We've been willing to work with housing development projects such as Davis Street and Central and work with developers as needed. I respectfully request the council delay voting on any of these amendments until we get answers to these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Eric Nielsen, I apologize. You had registered for item 2. I should have caught it. You got the purple on as we are talking about domestic violence. Apologize for my error. Kieran is next. And then after Kieran, we will go to Neil Haddad.
Hello, I'm Kieran Goff, Executive Director of the Arizona Neighborhood Project, and I'm here to speak about HB 2720, the ADU bill. I worked closely with the sponsor in drafting of not only 2720, but also HB 2721 related to middle housing. First, a few clarifications. I can assure you that Airbnb was not involved in drafting or lobbying for the bill. I'm happy to have a longer conversation with any of you about our goals, why we view state action as necessary, and how we can work with the city to build a positive relationship. I also want to emphasize just how much bipartisan support our bills received from legislators and stakeholders alike. Groups as diverse as the unions, the Pew Charitable Trusts, Lucha, Goldwater, because housing is on people's minds because the cost of housing is impacting everyone. Also, HB 2720 does include a provision regarding short-term rentals. It allows a city to require owner occupancy if an ADU is used as a short-term rental. And this addresses some of the concerns that we've heard about out-of-state investors or nuisance. And this provision was actually added in because the League of Cities and Towns specifically requested it. We thought their concerns were satisfied by that language and then found out later that folks still had issues with short-term rentals. So I just wanted to make clear that that is something that we tried to address. Second, I do want to thank you for taking the initiative to allow ADUs in Phoenix even before the statewide bill. And I encourage you to keep going further by embracing the HB 2720 and implementing it as permissively as possible to increase its benefits. The draft text amendment as currently written does include several requirements that we think will tend to discourage ADUs. And I would love to provide some additional feedback before you vote on it. So I had more to say, but my time is up, so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil is next, followed by Jackie. Neil Haddad?
Standing by, Mayor. Standing by.
Oh, perfect. Okay, we are ready for you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are discussing two text amendments, HB 2720 for ADUs and HB 2297 for adaptive reuse of commercial buildings. First, HB 2720 for ADUs. There was a statement in today's packet provided by Planning and Development, and we're told, based on the reasoning of the legal department. The issue in question is about whether the property owner must live on site if an ADU is used as a short-term rental. We learned about the rationale late yesterday afternoon, but I ask, wouldn't it have been better to explain the rationale in the packet and citing the reasoning by the legal department? We shouldn't have to spend our time and the time of other staff and elected officials to run down an answer that concerns us all. For HB 2297, adaptive reuse of commercial properties, our concerns remain, but it should be an easy fix to be in compliance. The legislation calls for, quote, not more than 10% of the total existing commercial office space or mixed-use buildings within the municipality, unquote. So the question is, what is the percentage figure for Phoenix? The statement in the packet refers to the percentage of land for the purpose of adaptive reuse as 6.1% of land area, but it goes on to state that it applies to 20% of the properties for redevelopment. We are looking for a clear and unambiguous answer as required by the legislation. What percentage of buildings within the municipality does the adaptive reuse apply to? And finally, neighborhood coalition members and others have been publicly clamoring for changes to the text amendment process for more than 7 years. Citizens deserve to be treated as stakeholders and be included in the process. By not fully drawing upon the experience, expertise, and input from regular people around the city is leaving a lot on the table. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Jackie is next, followed by Brad.
My name is Jackie Rich, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I haven't seen specific language, so I can't respond to specific things. I think you all are amazing that you could understand and feel comfortable with what has been presented to you, because for me, it's a level of detail that is not enough, and really the impact is in the detail. I just have 4 points to make with that in mind. I would like to see the city being more proactive and less reactive. And some of the things that the city could do to be more proactive, there's been a lot of discussion about public input being limited and how that's a problem. And I agree completely. I like the idea of the community meeting that Laura's talking about so we can get more input. But I think that the creation of a neighborhood council or some other way to get public input early in policy decisions would be useful. The second thing is I'd really like to see the city doing more to protect historic properties, given these bills that are impinging on what the city's vision is for its own city. The third thing is, and a couple of you all have mentioned this, that we really need to educate the legislators who voted for these bills usurping the city role, to let them know what their decisions are doing to Phoenix, because I don't think they could hear that enough. And the last item that I wanted to mention pertains to the commercial conversions to residential. At the City of Phoenix, residential use of a commercially zoned property does not have the protections for the residents that a residentially zoned property would have. I know.
Thank you. And if you'd stay on for a second, the Vice Mayor wanted to respond to that.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I hope you understand that we are doing this in response to the state legislature. I'm not quite sure that the majority of the council would agree with what we have to do. So I hope you understand that. I really do appreciate your comments. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Jackie. I guess you did not need to stay on, but at least hopefully you heard the appreciation. Brad is next, followed by Trevor, who will be our final speaker.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and city staff. My name is Brad Brower. I'm a resident of the Willow Neighborhood Historic District and the president of the Willow Neighborhood Association. In my own opinion, I think the city should be in a serious discussion, if not potentially legal action, with the state to maintain your own ability to zone our own urban areas. I think public input being removed is obscene, if not just offensive, and should not be ignored. As stated before, there were 3 public meetings about the CBD and its expansion. I truly appreciate the fact that the CBD did not move across McDowell, because we could not get an answer as to how that would benefit the neighborhood. However, then the state jumped in and included all of us that are in with one mile radius of the CBD making these changes. I would ask the city to review the Willow Conservation Plan, which is, it prevents outbuildings that are not subordinate to the original historic building. And I'd also like to thank all of you for making the comments that you've made regarding how you are not thrilled about what the state is requiring you to do. Councilwoman Pastor, you really answered a lot of questions I had to begin with, and I thank you so much for your comments on that. I think more public meetings would be greatly appreciated, and maybe a little bit more time to get the word out that they're taking place. But thank you all for your time, and hopefully we can, as a city, put the control back in the hands of the people who deserve it, being our city council and city management. Thank you.
Thank you. Trevor is next.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Trevor. I am a new resident. Moved here 2 weeks ago into my new apartment, though. Thank you so much. Congratulate me for that, I guess. I've been in the Valley for 10 years, and I've been paying attention to the reforms at the state legislature, and I'm a big supporter, and I've been a part of the movement supporting especially HB 2720 and 21, supporting ADUs in the missing middle. I mentioned I moved here very recently. I moved here mainly because of work. I'm a lot closer to where I work, but I also have a smaller partial reason for moving, is that I want to live in a certain type of neighborhood and around certain type of people, and in a city that is pro-housing. And under the current way of managing housing development, it can be very difficult to find zones for these ADUs or these missing middle types of neighborhoods that I want to live in as I grow up. And so that's why I support the City of Phoenix coming into compliance with the state law, especially in a way that limits the amount of additional restrictions so that people can still build these ADUs in these missing middle housing typologies feasibly. I was paying attention to the ADU ordinance in Chandler and in Tempe, because I spent a lot of time in both cities. And while they did legalize ADUs, there were still certain aspects of it that could have made it difficult for somebody to build an ADU, even if it was technically legal for them to do so. So once again, that's why it's really important that I think the city should come into compliance with the state law in a way that still makes it feasible and easy and understandable for people to build these accessory dwelling units in these missing middle housing typologies, because we know that they are more affordable types of housing development and that they increase our badly needed housing supply. So thank you, sir, very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Do we have any council member comments? Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you. I don't know if there's an answer to this question. One of the speakers mentioned about having some understanding of how this would work in conjunction with some of the historic neighborhoods. Is there anything we can add to clarify that? If not, I understand.
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, members of the council, for the adaptive reuse and multifamily text amendment, the state statute excludes historic district designations, as well as the text amendment also does not allow conflicts with those existing special planning districts, overlays, plans. So those would not be impact, those would still apply to those properties.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Pastor.
I have a question about that. So my understanding is that's not what happens. My understanding is that anybody could go, I'll use my neighborhood, could come into my neighborhood. I'll even use a home when that's happening. That is no longer in this, is it in the status of historic? However, it has been completely destroyed where it's going to lose the status. And someone, they can come in, destroy it, demolish it, and then we will have, which is fine for me, but my others, duplexes and triplexes in the integrity, now putting the integrity of the historic district at risk.
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, and circling back to Councilwoman Hodge Washington, I think the comments we heard were about several different text amendments. Trish is absolutely correct. For the adaptive reuse and multifamily, there's an exception for historically designated neighborhoods and even for single family neighborhoods for that matter. I think what the comment about the application to, and the lack of an exception for historic districts is for missing, what was for missing middle housing, which is not, again, before this council, won't be before this council to next year. But that is that Willow specifically, as Mr. Bauer testified, is impacted because of the 1 mile from the CBD.
Right.
And there is no exception for HP districts in the missing middle housing law.
Correct. And that's what the issue is.
As it's currently written.
Correct. I do want to ask Josh, those that were crafting this bill or this language, did they come and sit with you and say, hey, we're doing this language, we're crafting about ADUs, missing in the middle, all these other pieces. What have you done? What do you have on your books? What is important to you? Did you get any of that?
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, we certainly lead in those conversations with our intergovernmental affairs team. To the extent last session that we were engaged specifically about what Phoenix does, those conversations were not prevalent. We certainly, when we were given the opportunity, would reinforce how Phoenix was leading the way, and many of these areas had already adopted ADUs, hit at many of the points that we highlighted at the beginning of the presentation. But to the degree of consultation you're referring to, no, that did not occur.
Okay. And the reason why I'm asking that is because the dialogue that I know that was happening was really, this is coming down the pipe. We really need to get together, figure out language that we can live with, and have to accept. And those, and I find it disingenuous when people come and don't understand what the city is doing and then is writing policy against the city. When we want to be partners and be proactive and be able then to have a great city that is so diverse and have nuances of different types of housing in different areas and for different reasons. And so that's why I'm asking the question, because I want it on record. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for a very important discussion. Maybe we be able to make this a better situation and maybe be able to make a good case for the work we are doing at the City of Phoenix, which has really been a national leader. Thank you so much to our planning team and legal team. I have the pleasure of representing the City of Phoenix on the Maricopa Association of Government, and we got a great presentation on the work MAG has done over the last 25 years towards ending domestic violence. I thought it would be good in honor of October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month to have a conversation, because the City of Phoenix is also doing some really important work that is worthy of recognition. I want to thank former Councilwoman Peggy Bilstein, who was one of the founding members of the regional efforts. We've done so much to raise awareness and reduce the stigma. We've invested in new resources to help families, and we ought to recognize what we've accomplished, but also note we still have more work to do. Thank you to our Human Services Department leading through the Paint Phoenix Purple initiative. And thank you to our great Phoenix team, a few of whom includes DC Ernst, Jacqueline Edwards, Raquel Wind, and many others who work every day to improve the lives of domestic violence victims. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, thank you so much for letting us have the opportunity to come before you today. I'm speaking today in my role as the chair for the Maricopa Association of Governments, commonly referred to as MAG, Regional Domestic Violence Council. Am I really loud? Okay. October, as just mentioned, is recognized as Domestic Violence Month. This year also marks the 25th anniversary of the Regional Domestic Violence Council. In 1999, MAG Domestic Violence Council became one of the first and largest coordinated bodies of its kind in the country to take action towards ending domestic violence. Nearly 150 people from diverse disciplines participated in developing the first regional council plan, which included 41 recommendations to strengthen the regional response to domestic violence. Unfortunately, it took a tragedy to bring us together. 26 years ago, Laura Muñoz, a mother, a daughter, was killed by her abusive husband when she could not find shelter for her and her children. Unwilling to leave her children, she returned home where she was killed in front of her children. As the mayor indicated, Peggy Bilstein, then a council member with the City of Phoenix, was one of the champions for creating this committee. She was the founding chair and led the early achievements of the committee. In the packet of information available today is the document that is reflected on the slide. It reflects the milestones of the DV Council over the past 25 years. This slide shows just the first of the 8 pages of accomplishments. We have made progress. Our system is not as fragmented and siloed as it was 25 years ago. In the interest of time, this slide only reflects 3 of those accomplishments. In 2004, the council developed the curriculum, a training curriculum for crisis response teams working with children who witnessed domestic violence. In 2006, when I joined the City of Phoenix Community Assistance Program as their training coordinator, I took over overseeing the MAG Regional Crisis Intervention Academy. Crisis response teams within Maricopa County continue to utilize the Academy to ensure that crisis responders in the region receive the same evidence-based training to respond to DV and other calls for service. In 2011, MAG created the Misdemeanor Domestic Violence Protocol Model. When this model first started, law enforcement agencies used this protocol to overhaul their whole approach to domestic violence. Years later, this model is still making a difference in the ability to hold abusers accountable through the criminal justice system. And then in 2023, the Team Dating Violence Prevention Work Group, coordinated coordinated with Bloom 365 and created a 6-section webinar, which is still available on MAG for viewing today. Recently, MAG developed a video to represent the accomplishments of the council, as well as share stories of hope from those impacted with domestic violence. I'd like to share that video with you now. Much work remains as we consider, sorry about that. If you want to go to the last slide, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. Much work remains. As we consider what the next 25 years looks like, we do so within the context of a broader assessment of the Regional Human Services Planning of MAG. We look forward to continuing to work with partners in the community and survivors to end domestic violence. During October, individuals may find events being held throughout Maricopa in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month on the MAG website. It is now my pleasure to turn the remainder of this presentation over to Jacqueline Edwards and Raquel Wind as they share the events the City of Phoenix has planned during the month of October.
Thank you, DC. Thank you to the mayor and council members for your continued support, advocacy related to domestic violence awareness. We know this is an important issue in our community to address, and today we will be sharing the city's efforts. When we speak of domestic violence, it refers to a pattern of abusive or coercive behaviors in any intimate or familial relationship used to gain or maintain power and control over another person. Types of abuse may be physical, emotional, sexual, reproductive, financial, and/or digital. In the United States, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men will experience sexual violence, physical violence, and/or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. In the city of Phoenix, the police department received over 33,000 domestic violence calls for service in 2023. Even though these are jarring statistics, the city of Phoenix has a long history in providing services, resources, and awareness to address and prevent domestic violence in our community. Since 1999, the Family Advocacy Center, or FAC, has been available for victims of domestic violence. The FAC provides comprehensive services to victims of domestic violence and other violent incidents. The centralized location of the FAC allows for victims to receive a variety of resources from multiple agencies, including the Human Services Department and the Police Department. In addition, the Human Services Department has mobile victim advocates who can meet with victims or their families within the community. Beginning in 2014, the city funded the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, ACES-DV, temporary emergency shelter hotline for those experiencing domestic violence. This critical resource allows DV victims to know what shelter resources are available so they can flee to a safe environment. As a result of the 2013 Roadmap to Excellence, making the city of Phoenix a national leader in preventing and addressing domestic violence, the city launched the Paint Phoenix Purple campaign to support activities that directly impact survivors, as well as create opportunities to have important conversations to prevent and end domestic violence. This year marks the 12th annual Paint Phoenix Purple Domestic Violence Awareness Campaign. HSD Strategic Initiatives Manager Raquel Wind will share the activities the city is hosting or partnering on for the month of October.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Mayor and council members, we have several internal and public events planned throughout the month to engage the community, educate about domestic violence, provide resources, and show our support for survivors. I'll start with our employee events first. The City Department Item Donation Drive began October 1st and ends on the 31st. It's open to all city departments, and it's a contest. All items collected will be donated to the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, who will distribute the items to local shelters. The pet items that are being collected will be sent to Chicanos por la Causa de Colores shelter. Last year, almost 18,000 items were donated, with an estimated value of more than $25,000. Neighborhood Services won the contest last year. All our purple bins have been distributed, but we encourage any departments that would like to participate to still do so. On October 9th, we are hosting the 3rd annual Paint in the Park workshop at the Encanto Park Clubhouse from 5 to 7:30 p.m. A local artist will be leading a painting workshop focused on healing. Food trucks and resource tables will also be on site, and we expect about 100 participants. On October 17th, the Family Advocacy Center will host a seminar with guest speakers, including a 911 dispatcher, a Phoenix police detective, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and a nurse from Honor Health. Employees can register for this seminar on Phoenix U. It will be held from 8 a.m. to noon at the Family Advocacy Center. And on October 24th, we invite everyone to wear purple and join us at noon for a photo on the first floor stairs of City Hall. We are also organizing events to engage our youth. It's very important to do so because they are seeing examples of unhealthy relationships in the media and perhaps in their families and their friend groups. Our mission is to provide comprehensive, healthy relationship education for youth and their families. We do this in partnership with community organizations and service providers. Last month, we held our Teen Art Contest that was open to City of Phoenix teens. All school districts that touch the City of Phoenix were invited to participate. The pictures on the slide are our top 2 submissions. This month, Strategic Initiatives has partnered with New Life Center to provide parent presentations for 3 Roosevelt School District schools and 1 for parents at the Cave Creek Unified School District. Additionally, Strategic Initiatives, along with our community partners, are hosting domestic violence resource fairs at Camelback High School and Bioscience High School, along with a Purple Out themed game at Camelback High. And we have some external events planned to engage the public. Paint Phoenix Purple has partnered with several organizations for these free events. On October 10th, I will be presenting a virtual online domestic violence awareness training in partnership with the Paradise Valley Community College. On October 12th, KBX Phoenix is hosting a self-defense and empowerment workshop at their Tempe studio. On October 20th, The Permanent Voice is hosting their 2nd annual Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Awareness Walk at Esteban Park. And on October 23rd at the Burton Bar Central Library, the YWCA is having a community conversation where a survivor will share her story, and there will also be several resource tables at this event. All our events, along with the details, are up on our website. You can scan the QR code on the slide or go to paintphoenixpurple.org. When we engage the community on the topic of domestic violence, we recognize that this is a sensitive and heavy topic, so we always provide local and national resources. This Thursday, Telemundo Arizona is having a phone bank in partnership with Paint Phoenix Purple and CPLC's De Colores Shelter. The public can call in to ask questions or be connected to resources beginning at their 4 p.m. newscast. More resources can be found on our Paint Phoenix Purple website.
Mayor and council members, we greatly appreciate the time today to highlight our Paint Phoenix Purple activities. And thank you very much to the mayor for your leadership and for the proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Thank you. Any comments from council?
I have a comment. I just want to thank, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want to thank the staff for doing the work that they do. It's also at times very grim, but there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And so I want to thank the efforts that we do and Councilwoman Bilstein for taking it on and building where it is today. DC, I know you see a lot of things. And so I want to thank you for leading in this space, especially at MAG. I know your work and it's good work, and so I just want to appreciate you, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I was going to echo the same sentiments to say thank you on behalf of the city staff, MAG staff, as well as the private staff that help the individuals who are survivors or victims of domestic violence. Thank you for being that ray of sunshine on their bad day. And thank you for educating the next generation on what to look for when it comes to abusive relationships. I think we can only come out of this cycle with more education. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for being there in, like I said, their darkest hour.
I too want to thank all of you, and a special lady is sitting at the table who used to work for me. So thank you, Raquel, for everything you do. I believe we have one speaker, but I don't know if I see him here. Is he here, Eric? Oh, there he is. He's standing. You were sitting earlier. I apologize.
So I came today to speak in support of this place called UMOM. I've heard both people who are clients of there as well as abusive boyfriends tell me from their own mouth that once a woman makes it to UMOM, they can't be touched. So I think we should build maybe like a 500,000 square foot one of those might be a good idea. But I have a true story to share with y'all that I think is pertinent to the subject. Rewind from today back to 2013, I think, I'm not sure. It was about 2013. And as someone with mental health issues, I have trouble making and keeping friends. So I didn't really have any friends back when I was 23. But I used to pay my rent to Terry Goddard, $500, live at the Abbey. It was a steal back then. And then I would pay my electric, and I'd have about $50 to go bar hopping with, trying to make friends as a young person. So long story short, I went to this bar kind of by ASU downtown because they had this blue martini I really liked. And within about drinking half of it, I started to get incoherently drunk. At least that's what I thought was happening. And I came to in 4th Avenue Jail, charged with criminal damage, the first time I'd ever been arrested in Arizona. And I had a slit cut in the back of my jeans. I told the sheriffs what happened. I told the judge what happened. They dropped the case. MCSO picked the case back up. But if it can happen to me as a young man, I'm sure it can happen to other people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It looks like you're wearing purple today like the rest of us in honor of the month. So any other comments? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
So I'm coming from Rockford, Illinois. I worked in the mayor's office there and was looking for a different opportunity and saw that the City of Phoenix had a management fellowship, and so that was what brought me here. But one of my evaluations to determine whether or not I was going to come to Phoenix was making sure that I had just recently come out. So I wanted to make sure that I was coming to an inclusive, welcoming community, and the fact that an organization has and supports an alliance such as ours really gave me the confidence and comfort